Hello, BookTube. Right, after a bit of a delay that was much commented on in my inbox, we are resuming this library tour. We're doing the two bookcases that are in the bricked up old fireplace here in this front room. And we're down to the next shelf, and the next shelf does have transverse books, so we're gonna deal with them first so that we can get at the books below next time. And the first two transverse books are Robert Jordan mass market paperbacks, The Great Hunt and The Dragon Reborn. There's a channel, if I remember, I'll leave a link to it down below. It's doing a read-along of the entire Wheel of Time series, and I love the idea, and I was on board with the read-along until I read them, until I reread them, and they aren't worth it. So I reread the first three, and I thought, okay, you read all the others in this series because you had to. Do you voluntarily want to read book 4 and 5 and 6 again? And I didn't really. I have book 4 somewhere here, but I haven't got to it yet. So, but I do kind of like the first three. Somewhere in the 50 books of the Wheel of Time series, there is a fair to middling trilogy that just never got out, and the virus that kept it locked into 25 volumes, has spread to the rest of the fantasy community. Robert Jordan has a lot to answer for. An author who writes intentionally open-ended stories that are just going that are just intended to spool out forever, and that the author is intentionally meaning will be concluded by someone after his death. That author is doing a lot of harm to the literary community, not any good. Okay, this next one is Jim Butcher. This is the Aeronaut's Windlass in one of those nice, taller, mass-market paperbacks. I got this. I found it. I like that format. I think that I love that format. I wish it weren't so expensive. These things are probably $15 a piece now. But I haven't got. I never read Aeronaut's Windlass, and I wanted to, and I haven't got to this paperback yet. Okay, this is historical fiction. This is The Sheriff of Nottingham by Richard Kluger. We've seen this on this channel before. I highly, highly recommend it. It is a fantastic book. In fact, don't I remember seeing this just recently? Didn't we encounter a copy of this just recently? Somewhere in this library tour? Huh. I feel certain that that is true. I will have to look for it and see if I can at least put the copies of this book together. Good Lord. Okay, then David Mitchell's book, Bone Clocks. There is our super serious author on the back. I thought that it was fairly well constructed. I know that a lot of David Mitchell fans rank this their least favorite of his books, but I actually found it more bearable than most of his other books because it was less torturous. Less, you know, look, ma, I'm plotting. There was less of that going on, and the less of that, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, all right. This is okay. So we have two copies of Death Note #1, manga about a kid who finds Death's notebook and suddenly has the power to kill anybody he wants to. And what would you do if you had that power? And this series has gone on. In fact, it might still be going on. I have never read anything but the first one, and I haven't seen any of the film adaptations, either Japanese or American. But I really liked book 1. Once I had spent for me, since I'm bitterly old, I think it was about 6 consecutive hours, 6 straight hours, trying to figure out how to read it. I looked at a ton of YouTube tutorials, and it just would not sink in to read it the way it's supposed to be read. So it took me 6 straight hours of grappling with that before I finally figured out how to do it, and then I really liked it. Oh my, oh goodness gracious, oh my. Oh, this is a CD and everything. Okay, this is, this is, do I have a publication date? This is probably from 15 years ago. This is the Australian literary journal, The Lifted Brow. This I don't have a date on this, so I don't know how long ago this one was. I know from secondhand knowledge that this is out of print and collectible, and it is the only time, I presume, that I will ever appear on the same table of contents as David Foster Wallace. I think that is probably true. And a whole bunch of other people in here as well. Do we have a Douglas Copeland, Rick Moody, Yeah, the table of contents is a bit hard to read. Everything in here is a bit hard to read, except for my story. But this has CDs and original art and everything. And I think you would have to go and pay some exorbitant collector's price online to get it. My short story collection, one of the rare times I've had short story published, is about a man who's in love with the moon. And I've mentioned that story on this channel before. It won't let me go. That story won't let me go. It keeps calling me to rewrite it, to expand it, to change it. It's gone through a million different titles, the most persistent of which was Hyperion. And I don't know what to do with stories like that. Only fiction does that. And I don't know what to do with that. Whether or not to actually go back to it. Maybe I will. Okay, this is another one of those prestige mass markets. This is Noxious Burning, a fantastic, fantastic American Western Southern noir novel. Just it's very big, it's very dark, it's very atmospheric. You will love it. You will absolutely love it. It will pull you in and just keep you reading for, what is this, 800 pages? 860 pages. Some of you have been commenting in our Lonesome Dove read along that this is the easiest 800-page book you're ever reading in terms of reading, in terms of the smoothness of the reading experience. Noxious Burning is the same way. It's not a friendly book like Lonesome Dove, it's an unfriendly book, but even so, it's, I think, a masterpiece. I really do. It gets dismissed by people as being genre fiction, but I think it's a masterpiece. Okay, all right, we just recently lost Gardner Dozois, who was a great science fiction editor, and who for 35 years put out the best science fiction anthology. And when he died, a whole bunch of people who hadn't been born when he started his career talked about how he was, you know, easily the greatest science fiction editor of all time, or since Campbell. And those of us who've been in science fiction a long time, a lot longer than that, wanted to say, well, no, he was great, but he would be the first to tell you that there were other great editors, and this is one of them, the great Terry Carr, who did a Universe series. He also did the year's best science fiction series, very much like Gardner Dozois, only it came out in, you know, cheesy red bordered mass market paperbacks. But Terry Carr had the exact same kind of vision and uncanny instinct for which authors to follow and which would get great and who to encourage. And so his anthologies, they're all out of print now. They shouldn't be, but they're all of his anthologies. He did 3, as far as I know, he did 3 simultaneously running anthologies. One for horror fiction and fantasy, one for science fiction, and then the Universe series. And they're all fantastic. Even if you like, you know, like with Gardner Dozois or a couple of other people, even if you don't agree with the choices, a really great editor will win you over with the vision that informs the choices, and you will just find yourself reading in someone's mind. These things become a composite picture of what the editor considers the genre to be at its best. And I think I only have one Terry Carr book, I think, and this is it because it has a short story by Howard Waldrop called The Ugly Chickens, which is just fantastic. I think it's the best thing Waldrop did. You don't know his name unless you're a science fiction junkie. You won't know his name. He never really hit it big, and that's a shame because he's fantastic. And a lot of old school ex-hippie science fiction authors will tell you that. They will tell you, yeah, well, you know the greats, we know the greats too, but there are a few greats that you don't know, and he's one of them. And The Ugly Chickens is, it's just amazing. Oh, all right, now here we have more manga. This is very old school manga. This is Crying Freeman. This is one volume in Crying Freeman. I have a ton of these somewhere else, but I have them in larger comic book square-bound format. This is fantastic artwork, just incredible artwork of look at that. Look at, you've got submarines and artwork. Oh, it's just, these are amazing. And at heart, they're about the main character who was abducted. He was an artist, he was a sensitive soul. He was abducted by a league of assassins and trained to kill people. And although the training took, and he became a living weapon, an incredible living weapon, tattooed from head to toe, they couldn't quite program out his artistic instincts, and so every time he kills someone, he compulsively cries. And that is the Crying Freeman gimmick. And I love them. I was reading these things before I knew what manga was. I was reading these things at my comic shop at the time, there was a little old lady who ran the comic shop, and believe it or not, she loved Crying Freeman. She got it into her store specifically because she loved it. And as far as I know, it was the only manga that you could get at the time. This was, oh God, 30 or 40 years ago. And I fell in love with it right away and followed it all the way until it stopped. Even after the manga, the larger comic book issue manga started being issued in color, I still followed it. I think Crying Freeman is over now, right? I'm pretty sure the artist and writer have gone on to other things, but I wouldn't know. I'm not an expert on manga, despite having read that huge book on it. But anyway, that is it. Those are the transverse books. So next time we will go to the books on the shelves and see what we make of them. I have a feeling, I mean, I'm looking at them now, and it looks like it's mostly science fiction and fantasy. So for once, there will be a kind of theme. Don't get used to it, because it's not going to stay true. But anyway, I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, Book 2.